I can't keep doing this. I can't. Outside of the 2024 Alabama Georgia matchup, I swear I have gotten every single one of these games wrong. And I'm not actually frustrated, but to a certain degree, it is a little bit irritating in an ironic way. For the entire regular season, I picked Kirby Smart to win. I didn't doubt him. I felt like it was fair this one time, given in theory the matchup edges that Alabama had, and indeed they did not have them. And some of Georgia's issues that clearly after this game it feels like they've cleaned up, that I could pick Alabama to beat Georgia as they have under Kalen DeBoer and as they have before under Nick Saban. And I was wrong. And this was a very surprising result. I can now confirm that Georgia has two of the top five most impressive wins of the year. Much like the win against Texas by 25 points, the win over Alabama by 21 points is one of the most impressive wins in the country, two of them coming within a 1 month stretch. The Bulldogs are peaking right now. And as for Alabama, they have not looked the same since that October, late September run where they beat Georgia, then Vanderbilt, then Missouri, then Tennessee, and then South Carolina, where they looked really good outside of that South Carolina game. Should they even be in the playoffs? They scored 7 points. They prevented this from being 56-0, but it was 21-0 for most of the third quarter. Alabama nearly got shut out. They looked absolutely pedestrian on the offensive line and on offense in general. I thought their defense played well, but Georgia's defense played better. Georgia's offense looked motivated, crisp. They played with effort. They kept their feet churning. And when Alabama got hit, they just kind of dropped dead, like a fly that ran into one of the electrical fly swatters. Just zzz, and then they died. Georgia, under Kirby Smart, has earned their fourth SEC championship game. They will receive a bye as they did last year. They've improved off of last year's win total where they went 11-3. Right now they are 12-1. We'll see if they will win it all, if they'll lose in the quarterfinal, or some result in between that. This was just an insane game where Alabama came with effort and energy and poise, or Georgia did. Maybe I said Alabama. Georgia came with those things, and they decked the Crimson Tide. I have not seen Alabama look this bad in a big game. I have not seen Kalen DeBoer ever look this bad in a big game, but I have not seen Alabama perform this porously in a big-time matchup since 2018 against Clemson. And that Clemson team, if it were here this year, would beat the entire field by probably 10 points at minimum, if not more. Like, that was a different team that, with how they played in the playoffs, has an argument to be close to GOAT caliber, if not up there. Neither Georgia or this Alabama team do. I don't really think anyone, yes, that includes undefeated Indiana and Ohio State, really have that argument right now to be one of the greatest teams of all time. This was bad for Alabama, and by their standards, obviously. They now have a way to take Alabama out of the equation and put Miami and Notre Dame in, or they have a way to move Alabama back behind Notre Dame and keep Miami out. The latter of which would be one of the slimiest things ever. Miami should be in over Notre Dame, and anyone who tells you otherwise is someone who is biased towards the Irish or Marcus Freeman for a variety of reasons. You can't ignore head-to-head when those teams are very similar in power ratings and strength of schedule. I don't know personally if Alabama should be in, honestly. I kind of think after this performance they shouldn't be, but it doesn't matter what I think. I'm a guy with a white t-shirt on, with a comfortable sweatshirt, watching games on my big screen TV. And I think I do a pretty good job with YouTube, but I'm not on the committee. Although I and probably you watching this would do a much better job than the committee. They get to decide this, sadly, and it will be an absolute mess. It's a travesty that Tulane and whoever wins the ACC or JMU is going to get in over one of three: Alabama, Miami, and Notre Dame, and also that they're going to get in over, like, say, Texas or BYU, for example. It's a disaster. It's a mess, whatever. That's what Alabama was. If you count sacks into the rushing yards, they were held to negative rushing yards, -3. If you count that out, they still only got 26 rushing yards on 9 carries, so under 3 yards per carry, independent of sacks. That's how dominant Georgia's front was. Georgia ran for over 100 yards, 3.4 yards per carry, and I think Stockton may have taken a sack. Passing yards was pretty equal. Georgia had the more efficient passing game. They were just able to run the football in a more effective way. Got set up with short fields. Short fields prevent explosive plays often because there's less field to utilize. And Alabama had some late passing yards. A lot of that, honestly, was garbage time. Alabama had, I think, 130-something yards in the fourth quarter. They only had 74 yards through 3 quarters. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Georgia had nearly a 14-minute possession advantage over them. They were 2 of 2 on fourth down. Alabama was 1 of 3. Georgia won the special teams battle. Georgia decisively lost the penalty battle. And if they were just a little bit more disciplined, they could have won this game 28-0, or maybe they even would have won it 31 or 35-0. It was that one-sided. And you can see that in how the quarterbacks played each other. Gunnar Stockton completed over 75% of his passes. He averaged 6 yards per attempt with 3 touchdowns. He had a 165.4 QBR, long of 19. Simpson had a long pass of 30. I believe that was the really cool lateral play where it was a slant route, throws, receiver keeps running, and then there's another receiver waiting on the left, on the sideline to the left of Simpson, waiting for that lateral backwards pass. And that was a really cool play. But when you have a 97.7 passer rating, a touchdown, a pick, you average 5.4 yards per attempt, you complete less than 50% of your throws, all against a secondary that for much of the year, up until recently, has struggled. And I thought that Alabama, with superior receiver talent and O-line talent to Texas, and in power ratings, a better overall team, would maybe re-exploit some of those issues or reopen some of those wounds. They did not. Georgia dominated, and there is not one Alabama player that played better than any Georgia player. Not one. That is how dominant this performance was. Georgia played vice grips football. When you hold an opponent to negative 0.25 or negative a quarter EPA per play and had 36 minutes and 52 seconds of possession, you are keeping the opposing offense off the field, you are demoralizing that defense, and you are forcing constant 3-and-outs and punts. Smart, I still think, especially after this game, is the best in the business. He schooled DeBoer and won his 4th SEC title doing it his way. There's not much more to say than that. I mean, no one schools DeBoer. No one has schooled DeBoer in that way. And Smart just did it. On top of that, you got to remember Georgia, beating Georgia Tech, crushing Texas that way, beating Ole Miss when they had Kiffin still, almost beating Alabama in the regular season. They haven't played the toughest schedule in the world, but it's still a tough schedule. And the way this team has progressed throughout the year and developed throughout the year is impressive to watch. That's a testament to Kirby Smart. Georgia's defense, I think holding Alabama to 7 points and 3.8 yards per play is a signal that it is a great unit. It's probably approaching, it's already playing at a top 10 level, but in totality for the season, it's approaching a top 10 level. Right now it's playing at a top 10 level, if not maybe top 5. I'm curious to see how it continues to evolve. The next time we'll see Georgia is early next year, New Year's Day, or a date maybe after that, depending on where it falls, I forget. That's when we'll see them next in the quarterfinals. I would guess we see them in the Sugar Bowl, where they played last year and lost to Notre Dame. The concerning thing for Alabama is that they looked dead. That's the concerning thing. Where, I don't know. I think that with how they played today and how lethargic they looked and the lack of physicality that they showed, that the Crimson Tide, in all honesty, should probably be out of the playoffs at this point. I mean, they've played a gauntlet, and I'm going to backtrack. I don't know. If they are out of the playoffs, they don't have anyone to blame but themselves. But there's also the argument that they've played a much tougher schedule than Notre Dame and Miami. And had Notre Dame and Miami played that much tougher schedule, they probably do also lose 3 games, as they have lost 2. And while Notre Dame has looked dominant and Miami has in some ways looked dominant, they also had some sketchy games where, say, Notre Dame, instead of playing Boston College on the road and they have an ugly day there, they have an ugly day at South Carolina. Or they have an ugly day at Missouri when healthy. Do they win that game? I don't know. And the committee doesn't want to punish conference championship games, and I get that. So instead of saying they should be out, I'm just going to say I don't know. It's up in the air, and that's really bad. And we already talked about that. This could result in them being kicked out, honestly, with how dominant Georgia's performance was and the fact that Alabama was ranked inside the top 10, but barely. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. We will see you all later for an Indiana-Ohio State instant reaction.